So it's going to be completely different to my other videos, really. It goes on to like abuse, maybe a bit of like child abuse and stuff like that. And it's become from the amount of people who've messaged me who are using the gym or martial arts, boxing someplace, and they've come out of bad situations, or they're in a bad situation, want to get out of it. Younger people, some of them are still older than me, but you know, they've got these issues. The gym is one of the best things to help you escape and help you, whether it be martial arts, boxing, you know, weightlifting, stuff like that, you know, to help you get over issues you may have, help you become a stronger person, turn maybe bad habits into good habits. I know loads of people who've been drug addicts who've turned to the gym. I know a guy who was 15 years clean from heroin. He lost everything, fell rock bottom, managed to turn his life around. He's addicted to the gym, hasn't had a drink, hasn't done drugs. 15 years, very impressive to me, because you look at how many people can't get that lifestyle. Obviously he's lost some of his kids, 2 have forgiven him, 2 he'll never talk to again. But he understands that that was his fault, but at least he's tried to change as a person and improve himself, you know. So obviously it's a big respectable thing is that, but I just like to point things out. But yeah, if you're in a bad situation now, and you know, you'll have a lot of self-doubt about yourself, and you might think, oh, the gym's the only thing that gets me out, it gets my anger out, it gets me. Situations in life can change so fast, and sometimes the options, everyone has options, you just can't always see the options that are there in front of you. But if you're having a hard time, you know, my inbox is always open, stuff's bad, male, female, you know, you're trying to find a ways out of a bad lifestyle, that's pretty, that's completely fine. I came from a very abusive upbringing. I was adopted as a kid, and we had stuff really, really hard. It was made abundantly clear that obviously I wasn't loved as a kid, and you know, my adopted mother would say on a daily basis, she'd say, oh, I don't love you, you've ruined my life, I wish you, and this is from 3, 4, 5, 6, I can remember this from the fucking being like a little nappy baby. So I remember all the stuff, and then the physical abuse started, you get slapped about, beaten. My dad was a former police officer, and one of his favourite things was if he had a bad day at work, he'd get me and my brother and he'd put our hands out and he'd go, I've had a bad day, so you've got to stand with your hands out. The first person whose hands dropped would get beaten. And my brother was a bit younger than me, struggled a lot, and you know, basically to put things into a easy perspective, sometimes I'd drop my hands on purpose to spare my brother the beating, because he couldn't really handle it. Couldn't handle it either, but you know, it just the stuff you do in life. But the reason I'm sharing this story is hopefully it'll like be inspirational to people. But as I grew up and got out of this horrendous life, there's still stuff they've done in my life that's affected me that I haven't done, but they've done, and obviously you get associated with this fucking stupidity. But yeah, there was really, really bad people, and I actually remember I'd pretty much cut them off after something really bad they'd done to me, and I'd cut them off, and I was in my 24, no, I've been about 25, yeah, 25, 26, so mid-20s. And I remember it being a big impact on my life, like mentally. I used to think of the stuff he'd done, you just remember stuff. And I remember we had to go to a family like party. It was a like an anniversary thing for some of the older ups. And lo and behold, my adopted parents turned up to this, even though they weren't meant to be there. And to cut a long story short, he tried to get abusive to me, and he was this, obviously from a kid, he'd give me these beatings and all that stuff. Anyway, to cut a long story, I can't remember what it was, but he made jokes about my cousin who'd been raped and a few other offensive things. And I lost my temper, and I remember after I lost my temper, I punched him. And when I punched him, I dragged him out of his chair, punched him, threw him to the floor, choked him. And it was one of them things, like looking back on it, he didn't have a chance. He was just this fat old man who'd beaten kids. And I remember like when I threw him to the floor, it was just probably the easiest fight of my life, if I'm honest. Like, this guy had done all these horrible stuff to me, and I was just slapping him like a dog, and there was nothing he could do. And I remember when I got on top of him, he'd beat me and me or my brother, and he'd used to say, if you cry, you get worse. If you ever said, don't hit me, he would just go into a rage and he'd beat you worse. You know, you could never ask him to stop. He goes, please stop. You could never say that. That was the worst thing you could say, because a beating would go from slaps to fists if you said that. And he'd get violent, and in this particular situation, I remember I had him on the floor, and he's like, then he goes, please, stop, kid. He goes, you're killing me. And I remember thinking to myself, like enraged me more, because of what he'd done to us as kids. But then afterwards, I remember just looking at him thinking, look at this fat, disgusting, small human being who had seemed so big to me as a kid, and it was probably weaker than the average man. But because he'd beaten me at 3, 4, 5, 6, your mind's putting, he must have been an intimidating guy, he was this big, bad, yeah. But the actual fact was, he was just a bully. And it became really thinny with me. And a lot of people go, did you feel thinny? When I was like, no, I didn't really feel anything, you know. It was no different to working a security job and throwing someone out. I thought, well, aren't you pathetic? So like, my point is though, you know, obviously when I was getting beaten every day and all the abuse and stuff, you can never imagine this life change. I have a very good life now. I've had some bad shit happen to me, but financially I'm in a really great place. A lot of stuff I'm in a really good place with, so I can't complain. And my life has really changed around from where I was through my teen years and my early 20s, you know. So if it's bad for you, like my point of this was, don't get down, you know, you can change this, and I'm sure you will. Just want to change it for the better and not for the worse.